Hey guys, benpaines here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are trying out a new track, a track that we haven't done before, and we are at Teamsport High Wycombe for a members 3-for-2 or a social session, which we have not done since this time last year. So we're going to jump straight into the footage here and see what we're able to do. Now this is a track which is holding a regional final for the British Indoor Karting Championship this year. So I decided to come along with some of the other drivers that are from Bristol, and we were just going to try and put some laps in and see where we'd stack up if we were competing this year in the middleweight category. Now you can see here we've got underway for our first lap, and with a bit of a kerfuffle up in front of us, we come across the line with a 40.107 second lap time. Now this is obviously going to improve as the session goes on, and the session you are seeing is in fact the 5th session. I actually doubled up on this evening. I did back-to-back sessions, an hour and a half worth of karting at this track, and my fastest time seemed to fall in the 5th session rather than the very last session, which is usually a little bit peculiar, as I tend to personally go quicker and quicker as the night goes on. However, this track was a bit of an anomaly. I did not find this to be the case. I believe that I was able to do a 38.6 in my first session. This then dropped down to about a 38.3. It then jumped back up for sessions 3 and 4 to a 38.4, and then we were able to jump back down, and we're going to see what we're able to get in this 5th session. Now, coming around a few of the corners, I realised very quickly that this is a highly momentum-based track, very similar to Gosport, which we went to visit around this time last year as well, and honestly, I didn't really enjoy Gosport, so this one was also along that similar vein, as you're going to find out. Now we're coming and sweeping around some of the corners here. We're trying to take a short line to the start-finish line, just to try and cut that track distance off, and we come across the line with a 38.798, so we are improving from the beginning of the session, much like we would expect to. Coming into this bottom section of the track, we're trying to open up the corners as much as possible, and we actually follow the driver up ahead of us into the barrier there, which is obviously going to kill our momentum coming into this fast stage of the track before then heading back up the double ramp. I am pressing the boost button there, and I am finding it peculiar how it is not working. Now, one thing I noticed was that the boost would not work correctly if used on the up ramp. It had to be on that flat surface in between the two sort of uphill sections of the ramp. So that little flat bit is ideally the perfect place to hit that boost button rather than on the inclines. Once again, we're coming around on this lap in this bottom section of the track. Unfortunately, not quite opening up the track too much, and that's obviously leading to us not getting in the best of times, but then opening up this bottom hairpin here before the up ramp, just to try and use as much momentum as we can, carry it through the corner, and then giving us a little bit of a speed boost up the ramp without using the boost on the karts. And once again, we are then boosting coming across the start finish line. Now here, I believe that this was in fact one of our faster laps of the session. We're coming down and around the hairpin here into that tricky braking zone, one of few braking zones in the lap here, as most of this lap is actually flat out with the current tyres that are put on the kart. So once again, taking a nice tight line, trying to get as close to those barriers as we can without actually clipping them, as if you clip them, it is just going to kill that momentum. Again, we hit the boost button, and this time it works effectively. You can see the difference in speed compared to when we used it on the incline of the ramp, and then sweeping our way through the chicane, we come across the line with a 38.206 second lap time, which, to my surprise, was actually my fastest lap of this session. We weren't really able to improve on this throughout the rest of the session, which is something I was a little bit confused about. But as you're going to see, the rest of the session is sort of littered with mistakes, a little bit of boost usage in the wrong places, and I also just really was struggling with this track. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know if I overcooked it doing 6 sessions rather than the normal 3 that I would do on a member social event, but I just really was struggling to get to grips with the track. Now I say this as a 38.206 is not a bad lap time by any means, but there were other drivers on the track who were in the 37s consistently. There were some that were even getting down to a 37.5 second lap time. So obviously when I was coming off the track, seeing myself about 7 tenths off the pace of some of the other drivers, I was a little bit disappointed, but obviously that's just one of those things, and we're going to hammer out the rest of these laps and see how close we were able to get to that 38.206 once again. We're coming back up the ramp here, trying to stay in the middle of the track just to minimise the track distance as much as we can. We're trying some different lines this time, trying to go out a little bit wider to try and preserve that momentum coming into this chicane section once again, and using that boost coming across the line. Unfortunately, this lap was a little bit slower at 38.886 second lap time, so obviously one that was not too quick. Another thing that was noticed on the evening is that your fastest lap times are going to be laps where you're able to use the boost on 2 occasions rather than just one. So the ideal places I seem to personally find was coming across the start finish line. If you hit the boost there, it really gave you a good bit of momentum going into that first corner, and again, as you can see, I'm using it a second time coming up the ramp just to give you that bit more momentum coming up the incline. Obviously it's very steep, it's a lot steeper than it looks on camera, and honestly this track felt like a little bit of a roller coaster, especially the first couple of sessions. I was really caught by surprise coming into this down ramp here. It comes at you, the corner into the hairpin comes at you a lot quicker than you realise, and it's actually quite easy to lock the brakes and really kill your momentum, which is something I was doing for the first couple of sessions. I was really struggling to get to grips with that corner in particular. Another corner I was really struggling with in the different karts was this bottom hairpin. A lot of the karts I was using, the rear end of the kart was trying to slip away from me, despite others seeming to have a lot more rear end grip, and despite having the seat right at the back, I was really struggling to get the kart to sit where I wanted it to, and I just wasn't able to get the power down in the right way. So once again, you can see we're coming across the line not too consistent here, where our lap times are a little bit all over the place. We've got a 38.7 and our previous lap was a 38.5, but once more we're trying to open the track up, really trying to get as close to these barriers as we can without hitting them. We've got a driver on our right hand side there pulling over to the side just to give us some room, and again we're coming up the ramp trying to stay as tight to those barriers as we can, deploying the boost on the incline of the ramp, and then trying to swing the kart in as straight as we can through the chicane section, and then running out wide just to keep that momentum flowing. But unfortunately we come across the line once again 4 seconds off our fastest, 4 seconds or 4 tenths of a second off our fastest lap so far with a 38.631. So honestly we were just really struggling here, and I don't feel that the kart's batteries had too much to play here. I think I was just not driving very well, if I'm brutally honest. I think I was really struggling to keep the momentum throughout the rest of the track, much like I am trying to preach at this track. It was a very difficult one to master for me personally compared to some other tracks which I've been able to go to and really be on the pace quite quickly. So once again, coming up the ramp, going through the double apex corner, we're really trying to throw that kart in through the chicane once again, but once more we go even slower, 38.730. So we're not really nailing these laps as best as we can. Again, we've just clipped that inside of the barrier coming down the ramp, the first down ramp. I was really struggling to get that turning point correct, and again through the hairpin here we're not really getting the kart rotated as much as we should, and it's sort of causing us to bog down a little bit on the exit where we're still steering whilst exiting at the corner. However, we come up the ramp once again, deploying that double boost as we come up the ramp, throwing the kart in and trying to stay tight to that barrier once again, trying to get this section as straight as possible and running out wide just to keep our momentum up, our speed up. You can see again a 38.625, so we're still 4 tenths off our fastest lap yet again. This time we come down the ramp, luckily we do not clip the barrier on this occasion. We then open up this hairpin trying to stay as wide as possible, and then this time we get a little bit of a better swing through that hairpin, and it's given us a little bit of a better speed boost coming around this bottom section of the track. Again, we're running out wide just to try and keep the motor of the car ticking over as best we can as we come back up the ramp once again, trying to swing that car in nicely, coming through the last section of the track and then hitting our boost button once again. But unfortunately it was to no avail. We're coming across the line with a 38.765 second lap time yet again, so we're really struggling here to get anywhere near our best lap so far. And I think this was akin to not really having any sort of reference up ahead of us. We're really been trundling around by ourselves for the whole session. So I did notice behind us we did have another driver from Bristol behind us, Noel Haddon, who I decided to wave through as I knew he'd been to the track practicing a fair few times. So I thought if I could stick to the back of this bumper, then I might be able to get a quicker lap time come the end of the session. So we're going to have a couple of laps here behind Noel and see what we're able to do. Now obviously we sacrificed our last lap letting Noel pass, so we've come across the line with a 39.450, and now we're really trying to use that tunnel vision to catch onto the back of his bumper and see what we're able to do coming around into this bottom section. He hits the barrier there on exit, and he actually still sort of pulls away from us, which I was a little bit confused about, but once again I'm really trying to preserve the momentum through the corners, and you can see we're sticking to him pretty well here, and then obviously we are a little bit lighter than him as well, so it's given us that bit of an advantage coming back up the ramp too. So once again we're swinging the car through, we're hitting the boost early to ensure that we can keep that speed as much as possible. We come across the line here with a 38.393 second lap time, so already almost all the way down to our best lap time so far. Obviously we still haven't quite reached it yet, but we're going to see if we can do any better as we come towards the end of the session. Now once again you can see I'm getting a little bit frustrated as we're losing out on exit, and I was almost blaming the kart at this point, but I think it was just myself not really getting the kart rotated as well as I could, and this was then causing me to just lose out on a little bit of that momentum, as I've mentioned, coming around the end of the lap. Once again you can see he's still got his boost left, so he's going to start jetting off into the distance, and we are just sort of sat behind him hoping that we're able to catch back up with a couple of laps left in the session. Once again we're really gaining on him coming into this down ramp here, which I was actually quite happy with, as that was somewhere that I was really physically struggling by this point in the session. And once again you can see we're losing out on that bottom hairpin there coming around in this bottom section. We're really struggling there, but we are keeping up nicely here as we come back onto the up ramp. But we decided not to hit our boost button this time, as we didn't have the boost coming across the start finish line on the last lap. So again we're going to deploy it here as we come around the last corner here across the start finish line. So we're hoping to bank a pretty decent lap here right at the end of the session. Unfortunately we're really struggling with that first corner as well. We're losing a lot of time there, which I'm not entirely sure how. I think I was just taking the wrong line, if I'm brutally honest. And again we're trying to keep the car as stable as possible through this section of the track. It's very difficult and technical part of the track, actually trying to swing the kart from left to right, and honestly we're struggling. You can see here once again I opened the corner up, but I think I opened it up a little bit too much here, as we don't really gain too much time. Noel then waves us back through here, and we are able to get back ahead of him. Now with the references he's given us, let's see what we're able to do as we move ourselves into the very last lap of the session. We chuck the kart in here through the first corner, going up and over the crest of the down ramp, flicking the kart in once again, taking a very nice line coming through that section of the track. Again just flicking the kart quite nicely into these two hairpins. Unfortunately this second hairpin we've taken about 2 or 3 jabs at the wheel, which is going to scrub off our speed and lose our momentum. Coming through this section of the track, trying to stay as tight to barriers as possible, opening the track up once again, all on this section of the track. We hit the boost button, but unfortunately it doesn't quite register, as I don't think we hit it hard enough, and we come around the last couple of corners here in a pretty meagre manner, coming across the line with a 38.733. So we weren't really able to get anywhere close to our best lap time to round out the rest of this session, and this does in fact bring us to the end of the video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, so I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel and haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.